Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or whenever you are tuning in to the Growing Our Future podcast. First off, we're going to start with a thank you. Thank you for stopping by. Time is such a precious commodity. The only thing we can do with it is spend it. We can't hoard it. We can't save it. We just got to spend it. So the fact that you're willing to spend a little time with us, we want to start by saying thank you. The Growing Our Future podcast is all about exactly what it says, growing the future. I tell people, if agriculture's taught me anything, it's taught me that. If you want to know what the future is, grow it. Well, how do you grow it? You got to plant the right seeds. You got to take care of it. You got to harvest it, and then you got to share it. And that is the essence of life. I'm always on the lookout for great speakers, great presenters, folks with incredible insights, experience, and expertise. I was recently at Leaderfest, Wichita Falls Chamber of Commerce, and I heard this gentleman speak. And when I did, I said, I've got to reach out. I got to ask him to come on and pour into us like he poured into us that day. So it is an honor to welcome author, speaker, mentor. I mean, you probably got more titles, collaborator, but we've got Brad Lomenick here. Brad, thank you so much for joining us today.
Honored, man. Honored to be on. That was a great day in Wichita Falls.
It was, yeah, it was bookend from the time it started to the time it ended. It was just drinking from the fire hose, just great information.
Yes.
And again,
Yep.
I wanted to say thank you. We had a chance to visit before you went on stage, and again, I picked up real quick. I didn't know a whole lot about this guy, but I knew that he was definitely humble. He was hungry, and I could tell that he was full of hustle.
There you
I
go. Come
don't know
on.
if we'll hear anything about that later, but I bet we will. But
Let's go.
Brad, let's start off with this. I ask every guest that comes onto this podcast the same first question because I think it's just a great way to reflect on a day and a life. But that question is, what are you grateful for today?
Yeah, it is a great question. Thank you. By the way, Aaron, thanks for having me on. Seriously, I'm honored. And as John Maxwell always says, and taught me when I was a knucklehead 20 something, if we can help one person a day, we're winning. If we can add
Mm,
value to one person, I hope we add more value than that to
mm,
many people. But if we can help one person, then this is a good use of our time. Grateful. What am I grateful for today? I'm grateful for life. I won't tell you where I am, but I'm somewhere that the ocean is close. And, to be able to see the ocean, to know that there's a creator, that there's a God that's, orchestrating all things, and to have I would say, an abundance mindset,
mm.
in general. And this is hard. This is hard. We find ourselves, everything about us as leaders, whether it's today or next week or last month or a year from now, it tends to pull us down, right? I mean, we tend to get pulled down to cynicism,
Mm,
to what feels like division. We move the wrong direction.
mm.
And so I would, I'm grateful for hope and optimism. I'm grateful for a vision that says, you know what, like tomorrow can be better than today, and today matters. So
Mm.
that's my general response.
Uh, It was perfect. By the way, we could stop right there. We're not going to, but we could. Um, by the way, I agree with everything you just said. A mutual friend of ours is a guy named Tom Ziegler, and Tom was on the East Coast. He's the son of the late great Zig Ziglar, and Tom was on the East Coast, and he was talking to some college kids, and he talked about gratitude, and they talked a lot about the emotion and things that go with gratitude, energy, optimism, hope, and they go through all of these things associated with gratitude. And then he asked them this question. He said, "What is the opposite of gratitude?" And it got quiet, and everybody thought about it. And finally, Tom said, "The opposite of gratitude is entitlement."
Yeah.
And just like that, the emotions change. That's not fair. I'm angry. Give that to me. And so I think if we can just take one little nugget to start this podcast It's that if each day we wake up and we say, today I've got a day, like you just said, to make a difference, to
Yeah.
encourage someone, to empower someone, to equip someone, to be that person that brings hope to somebody else in their life. What a blessing that is to have that opportunity. And so I'll start by saying thank you. I'm grateful that you came on the show.
Well,
And
and you and I both speak, we go places and either we're being hosted or we host
mm,
people. And to your point of what Tom said, the entitlement, like I want to I love it when people honor me with great hospitality,
yes,
right? So do
yes,
you.
yes,
But here's
yes.
here's where it gets weird or it gets
Mm,
where it's dangerous is that I expect that. So now I'm showing up and I'm looking around going, okay, where's the person that's supposed to be getting me the right snacks? And
mm,
the proverbial, we've heard the story of the green M&Ms, in the green room. And that's both dangerous for us as leaders or just as people,
ooh,
but it also
mm,
pulls people down.
mm,
But when I'm the person who walks in the room as the speaker or the athlete or the coach or the principal or the superintendent
mm,
and says, "Man, I'm so grateful that you all would host me with such a level of hospitality. I don't expect it, but I'm really grateful for it."
mm,
Um, Compared to I'm here and I expect it, and now if you don't meet my expectations, then I'm going to pull all of you towards cynicism, and that's just that's part
mm.
of our role as a leader is to change the temperature in the room wherever we show up.
Well, that's good. It's real simple. That's like what I like to tell folks is a fountain can only rise as high as its head. So to
That's
your
right.
point, there's a responsibility that comes with that. And I'm going to have to get some tips from you because I've never had those opportunities for expectation. I just try to show up and get an opportunity. So,
Listen, take it to the person in charge of their local FFA chapter in the high school,
right,
or take it to the principal of the school, or take it to
right.
the captain of the football team, or the head football coach.
Yep.
Everywhere we go, the leader always has to set the temperature by being grateful and walking in with a
Yes.
sense of hey, I'm honored that you all would host me well.
Yes. That is exactly it right there. And by the way, what you just said, and I hope everybody heard it, it's a choice that we make.
Yeah,
We
and it's
we
an easy
purpose
choice.
it we purposely walk in and say, I'm going to be grateful today, and I'm going to
Yes,
try to lift everybody else up around me.
yes,
That was excellent. One of the things through this podcast that we kind of encourage people to do is practice R2A2. I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but I tell people to R2A2 things. So planting seeds of greatness, we're going to learn to R2A2. So as we listen to Brad today, he's already given it to us, by the way. Just watch this. He's already given it to us. We're going to recognize, we're going to relate, we're going to assimilate, and then we're going to apply. So he's already shared with us this importance of being purposely grateful. I recognize that. So I related to that. Now I've got to take in that. I've got to take that in and assimilate it. And then the law of reciprocity. I've got to go share that. I've got to go give that back to somebody. So as we go through these podcasts and we R2A2 things, that's why I told y'all he was going to be a great guest because immediately we're talking about that role of a leader in setting that grateful compass because we recognize that that's a responsibility good leaders have. So thank you for that. I want the audience to know a little bit more about you. Again, you're an author, you're a speaker, you've got a very accomplished career. Something tells me, I'm just guessing, something tells me you did not just fall into that seat. Something
did
tells
not.
me that there was a journey that kind of got you there. So share with the audience, how did Brad Lomenick get to where he's at now, to have this passion to write books, to pour into others? Give us a little bit of that journey.
Sure. Well, I grew up in Oklahoma, just outside of Tulsa. So, Boomer Sooner to all my Sooner friends. Every other school in Texas, we have a similarity. We all can't stand the burnt orange. So, for all my Texas friends, you know what I'm saying because you hate me just as much as I hate you, in deep respect and admiration. But I was a son of a football coach.
Mm.
high school football coach, and grew up in a small town, and really felt that I would say this, I felt a sense of purpose on my life of being a leader. I didn't know what that meant. I remember first grade, Aaron, showing up, and my parents didn't tell me this, but just this sense that I needed to be somebody in that class in first grade who was going to step up and step out and make a difference. Now, again, you don't know what that is when you're 6, but there was intrinsic things in me that felt like I needed to be a tone setter, and did all the school, ran for all the school offices and played sports, and then went to the University of Oklahoma and got a history degree. But and I was going to go to law school. But then about 3 or 4 years later, I met John Maxwell, and he had an organization that was doing conferences and events. And it was the first time for me that let's take leadership as an industry, that it felt like there was an organization and a person that I could connect my wagon to, and
Mm.
perhaps have a, let's
Mm.
call it a career, or at least an assignment
Mm.
that would start to connect the dots for me of, let's take all these things that feel like breadcrumbs in my life around leadership, and now let's turn them into something. So I started doing events and started putting on big conferences, and then that gave me runway for having a platform to write books or be an
Mm.
advisor, or to be a gatherer of leaders. But I would say this again, practically, for all the students listening, the key lesson for me that I want to pass on is, there are things in your life when you're a kid that are truest about you. And part of our job as a leader is self-awareness. And so when people start asking you, what do you want to do with your life, and what are you going to major in, and how are you going to get to the finish line of the job or the industry or the organization you want to get connected to, you got to pay attention to those things. But also you have to equally give yourself freedom, especially, let's call it in your first quarter of life, to have a bunch of different things that give you experience. Because you can only reverse engineer and look back on a bunch of different things, and feel like, wait, that one seemed to be a great fit for me. That one didn't necessarily. I tried to be a good steward and be faithful in that job or that role. So you've got to have some things that you can look back on. And also the who factor. The who factor for me was three or four people. Three or four people over the course, let's call it for me, from 18 to 30. Three or four people, the who factor. In fact, I probably need to write a book, or somebody needs to write a book on the who factor. But the who for me gave me runway for the what. And that who in my life, it was a pastor, it was a business leader, it was a mentor, it was John Maxwell.
Mm.
They gave me enough evidence, or at least runway, to then start to get clear on the why and the what, the where and the when. So if you're in a season
Mm.
where you're navigating questions of what's next for me, find a good who. This is why teachers
Mm.
and coaches and administrators and people who are mentors in the early part of your journey, why they're so important, because they're the who factor for you.
Mhm.
Every single one of us, Aaron, I know you would have them and I have them.
Mhm.
The coaches in my life who
Mhm.
said,
Mhm.
I'm going to invest something in you when you're 14 that you don't even know is going to be that big of a deal. But so I'll stop there and let you ask questions or follow up on anything
Oh.
specific. But that's the number one story of my life is, I was given opportunities I didn't deserve, but many of those were because of I was hanging around the right people and had proximity.
Well, there's some really good stuff there, by the way, Brad, just the way you just shared that. So one of the programs that we have through the foundation is called the Foundation Ambassadors, and we'll have about 300 kids apply and about 70 that get chosen. We put them through a leadership development program, and then they host executives, dignitaries, policymakers. I mean, the number of people they will meet in 1 week is incredible. But one of the things that we do through that program is we teach them what's called the 3 foot rule. And we tell them to get to know anybody within 3 feet of them, because those people will one day become their colleagues, their constituents, their customers.
Yep.
But people with strong networks, they solve problems quicker. They're able to capitalize on opportunities. And again, when I R2A2 things that you say, that one really jumped out at me. be on the lookout, both with your ears and your eyes. Be on the lookout for those who factors, those people that may be in that network that one day build that runway that
Yep.
create an author or a coach or whatever it may be that you choose to be successful in life. But I think what I like that you said was number one, it's like I say it this way. We were not created to be the Lone Rangers. Life is not a solo project.
Hmm.
None of us is as strong as all of us. And when you said that, I thought that's a nugget right there. Identify people. One of my board members, what he tells the young people, he said, get your own personal board of directors.
Yeah.
Build your own personal board of folks that will pour into you and make you better.
And it's never been easier to find to have who factors mean multiple,
Mhm.
meaning it doesn't. I want it to be proximity for people,
Sure.
but even the idea that now I can have
Hmm.
people and voices and resources in my life that are far from me.
Hmm.
So the ability for us to, in many ways, again, create our own runway of learning, personal growth, development, that we have more resources and content and podcasts and voices
Hmm.
at our fingertips than we've ever had in the history of mankind.
Hmm.
So there's really no excuse, you know. And the other thing is true, Aaron, about where we find ourselves is accessibility is actually now something that has come to all of us, meaning
Mm.
the ability for anybody to get in touch with anybody. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, I think it's removed the barriers of, does the 18-year-old have the ability to reach out to a CEO of a $20 billion company and get some kind of response? Now, the challenge for many of my friends who are younger goes back to entitlement. It goes back to, how am I going to approach the hustle that it takes to reach out to 20 people
Mm.
and get no response?
Hmm.
Compared to, I'm expecting somebody to now like be in my world and to mentor me and to, meet with me every Friday.
Hmm.
Um, so I think the hustle factor has to be part of this of, hey, like it's your job. It's your job. That's the beauty of once we graduate,
Hmm.
once we get into the, let's call it the adult world, now we have the ability to curate our own learning journey. And
Hmm.
those are the people, I mean, working for John Maxwell, uh, he's 77, 78 now. And some people may not know his name, but you and I both know he's a pretty significant leadership voice.
Hmm.
And he still goes to the events and the gatherings and the round tables, and he's got his notebook out and he's learning from everybody sitting at the table. And that's a posture, again, just like we talked about with being grateful, a posture of curiosity,
Yes.
of having a mindset of, I'm still hungry. I may be the goat in the room. I may
Hmm.
be the grand poobah,
Hmm.
but I'm still gonna have a posture that says everywhere I go is a classroom. And that's so attractive. It doesn't take talent,
Wow.
just like gratefulness. It doesn't take talent to be hungry.
I
You
love that.
automatically gain influence and credibility when you are the most curious person at the table.
I mean, one of the programs that we have a program for teachers, by the way, and we put 36 teachers, three from each of 12 areas on the state of Texas on a bus. We'll travel 1,000 miles. They'll visit 17 locations. They'll hear from over 70 speakers. But when they get their notebooks, when they open it up, the first thing they see is just a simple word question. And I always ask them, what's the root word of the word question? Quest.
Mm.
Go on an adventure. Every chance you get to listen, to learn, ask questions, go on an adventure. And I agree with you that when I think of John Maxwell, by the way, I recently taught a Bible study over 21 laws of leadership from the Bible.
Let's
And
go.
it's a great book, by the way, but I love a lot of John's. I use so many of his one-liners. Never underestimate the status quo. A lot of people worked hard to get it there. And that just so many cool things about dissecting leadership and success. But it's what you just said, Brad, and what you just said was exactly what triggered my thought on that. In our world of agriculture, we always say when you green, you grow, when you ripe, you rot.
Mm.
And I've always noticed that great leaders are always growing. They're always asking what's next. I just shared the other day that of all the people that I've been blessed to come in contact with, the word next is in every vocabulary. It doesn't matter if it's a success, what's next? If it's a setback, what's next? If it's a trial, what's next?
Mm.
It's always looking forward. They take time to celebrate. Don't take me wrong. They take time to celebrate, to dissect, like John Maxwell talks about. Do an autopsy on that success. Do an autopsy on that failure. But keep looking at what's next. And there's a gentleman that works for the Texas Workforce Commission, Joe Esparza. He's one of the commissioners, and he said something in a meeting the other day, and I wrote it down and I went up to him afterwards. I said, I want to make sure I got this right. I said, do you realize what you just said? And he said, well, I don't know. I said, well, let me just tell you what you said. Make sure I got it right. And you said it, accessibility. And this is what he said. He said, small towns are just one click away from big business.
Wow. I love it.
I is a powerful quote. Small towns are just one click away. Now think about what that means to go back to your who factor. Go
Yeah.
back to what you just described. That's one click away now. It doesn't matter if you're in Dallas or Houston or New York. You could be in Paducah, Kentucky or Paducah, Texas. You've got that opportunity just to have that one click to accessibility, that chance to grow, that chance to learn.
Yeah. So good, man.
All right, let's stay with some of your projects here. So, if we're going to post your website so everybody can go and check out and see what all you have. But I noticed that you've written several books. By the way, one of them, years ago, years and years and years ago, I'm going all the way back to 1992.
Oh gosh.
I actually started a consulting company called Catalyst Dynamics because I love the word catalyst. I
Yeah.
love the word catalyst because it invokes action and movement and change. And I know that you talk a lot about catalyst leadership. You talk about H3, which I would like for you to talk about, but would you mind just sharing a little bit about why it's important, why catalyst leadership matters, and why does this H3 approach matter?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Well, and Catalyst was as it was actually a conference. It was a number of conferences, and it sort of became a pretty big movement, let's call it that, back from the year 2000 to 2020 for about 20 years. And this was all part of, when I got connected to John Maxwell, and
Okay.
it was a gathering primarily of younger leaders,
Mm.
and it was focused on under 40 leaders in America, and it was a great run. I agree, Aaron. Like, the idea that a catalyst is it sparks a change, but it leaves no residue of itself. So it
Mm.
creates change, but it's not about itself. Um, and the premise that we can be those kind of change agents. Everybody's creating some kind of impact on the people around them, and to just be an agent of change, a spark for other people.
Mm.
H3 for me is really my framework. I would call it my framework of influence. And over the years, when interns would come into our team who were 21, and they were ready to change the world and sort of wondering, okay, how do we approach things here, and how do I get your job? How do I how do I become the standout? And my answer was always be humble, stay hungry, always hustle. Like that framework of be humble, stay hungry, always hustle. And so that it turned into a book title, but way before it was a book title, it was for me the framework of leadership and
Mm.
humility, hunger, hustle. And within those three buckets, there's a number of different things that I would say are habits that allow you to live those out well. But to give people just a really quick flyover, I think the important piece of humility is self-awareness. And we've all been around leaders, or probably worked for leaders who wanted to be humble, but they were living such a insecure life as a leader. They hadn't really tackled the issues of self-awareness, and now they're running something that is significant. They're in charge of something. They
Mhm.
have like they have hierarchical power. They have authority based on a title. But there's everybody who's around them. They would look at them and go, "You just don't get it." And that's a very dangerous place to be as a leader. Here's the answer. Here's the antidote,
Mhm.
which is hard for a lot of us. The antidote to insecurity as a leader is to lean into self-awareness and start to understand that the people who work for you or that are being led by you, they already know. they they already know the things that you may not be good at, or the things that you wrestle with, or the times when you get mad, or the times when you lose your temper. Or so part of our job as leaders is to create congruency between what they know and what I
Mhm.
think they know, or I tell them I know, right?
Mhm.
Um, Hunger, we've just talked about it. The posture of curiosity,
Mhm.
the willingness to walk into any room and feel like you're still the most curious and willing to learn. And then hustle, the hustle factor for me it's a holistic hustle mindset, or a holistic hustle perspective, which says I'm willing to work hard. I'm willing to stick things out. I'm willing to execute. I'm willing to be the person that solves problems. But I'm also going to be aware that because of my ambition, there's probably some things I need to put into my life that are going to regulate my life. And
Mhm.
because what I don't want to see people do is
Mhm.
hustle and then burn out,
Mhm.
or hustle and then crash. And so part of what we have to do as leaders, again, is when it comes to hustle, is you have to start to create rhythms of life. And that means margin, it means Sabbath, it means collaboration, it means generosity, it means gratefulness. So my definition of hustle is, again, a holistic definition. I'm not saying that the focus here is a zero sum scarcity
Right.
game.
Right.
Let's just go chase it, and then
Mhm.
whoever wins, you get it all. No, the proper hustle factor is one to say, I'm going to hustle to create a space for generosity to occur. And that's a different perspective on the word hustle, at least the way I look at it.
Well, that's gold right there, though.
And we can dive into any of those if you want
Yeah,
to. If you
that
want
that's
to,
that's where my mind was going. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, um, so on a, let me take it 30,000 and we're going to bring it back down. So,
sure,
one of the examples that I use is, I asked students, I said, how many high schools are in the state of Texas? And never fails, somebody will say a lot. I said, yeah, there's a lot. I said, there's actually over 3,000 high schools in the state of Texas. And then I asked them, how many of them are going to have a graduating class this year? Every one of them. Now think about that. All these kids are going to be out looking for a job, a scholarship, or an opportunity. And at the end of the day, you've got to have a competitive edge. What's going to be your competitive edge? It could be a firm handshake. It could be a yes or no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. But there could be something that gives you that little bit of edge that opens that door of opportunity. And I think what I really appreciated when you shared the H3 is I immediately viewed that as a competitive edge. I
sure,
thought immediately, if we can plant that seed of realizing, walk in there. Let me just brag on Brad here real quick. Let me give you an example. He and I were talking, and I knew that he was one of the speakers on the program, but I did not identify him right away. He and I are sitting there talking. He's asking me questions. He's inquiring about what I do and who I am and what's going on. And then it dawned on me, I go, this is the keynote. But but the reason I share that, by the way, that's happened to me before too. But
sure,
the
yeah,
reason I share that though is because when your values are clear, your choices are easy.
yeah,
When your values are clear, your choices are easy. He wrote a book about that. I got to witness it in practice.
yeah.
I,
And I better live it out if I'm writing about it. I better be a good example of it.
that's what I'm saying. I
Yeah,
loved it because everybody that knows me on social media, I go by the handle "Live Your Brand." And I tell people that what we like, share, comment on, and what we do, that becomes our brand to the public. To your point, when you did that, you became that brand that I began to know. So again, when I think about planting seeds of greatness, and we can think about being humble, curious, going on an adventure, to think about that I've got to be hungry. I don't know it all. I loved when you said the first quarter of life,
Yeah,
because you probably have friends that talk about the first, second, third, and fourth quarter. And I'm in that third quarter right now. And it's just the reality of, but at the same time, though, Brad, I'm in the third quarter. In the words of Zig, I'm not going to let up, shut up, give up until I'm taken up. I'm just getting warmed up. So
let's go.
we're still moving, right? We're still
Yes,
trying to be that catalyst. And I think that's what creates some of that hustle, by the way.
yes. Yeah. And ultimately, you know this, Aaron, like you're probably look at those three legs of the stool. Let's just call them three legs of a stool.
Okay.
The humility, hunger, hustle. Um, and by the way, Pat Lencioni, who's a great author, wrote Five Dysfunctions of a Team and The
Yes.
Advantage, and
Yes. Yes.
he wrote a book called Ideal Team Player. An ideal team player, he talks about humble, hungry, smart, and there's a lot of crossover there, a lot of
Mhm.
similarities. Um, but if you think about the three legs of the stool, we can't choose to only do one of those legs. And I know a lot of leaders who have a huge amount of humility.
Mm.
Like they understand it's not about them. There's a bigger story. They're self-aware. They walk into a room with even a sense of curiosity, but they don't do anything. They just talk about it. They don't ever make anything happen. Their hustle factor is very low. And then there's just the opposite. There's people who are hustling and they're crushing it and they get things done and they're winning and they have ambition, but their humility is non-existent. So now they run over everybody and they do think it's all about them. And so these things have to be kept in balance. You have to look at your whole scorecard as a leader, and you can't just get an A in hustle and get an F in humility, or vice versa. So this is a holistic perspective on what does it take for me to, to be the best kind of leader I can be. And there's lots of different, again, there's lots of frameworks. Man, there's so many
Sure.
frameworks out there. But for me, this was truly like a playbook that I could then like pass on, especially to younger leaders today. So that's, when people ask, well, who do I write that book for? I kind of wrote it for the 22-year-old who's just coming out of college and is trying to figure out how do I, as you said, how do I create a core value system
Mm-hmm.
that's going to allow me to have a 50-year
Mm-hmm.
pathway to influence and greatness?
Let's bring this back to a little bit to the ag world real quick. So the other
Sure.
day I was asked to come and talk, and it was about what is the future of agriculture. And I said, well, it didn't take me long to figure that out. I said, by 2050, we're going to have about 9.8 billion people on this earth. 41% of the earth's surface is arid land. To feed 9.8 billion people, we would need two additional planets. So I said, I think the future of agriculture looks pretty bright. But with that are going to come some real challenges. We're going to have to embrace some new technologies. And as I began to think about that, and I thought about what you just shared about the three H's, I thought, it, you know, it. I talked a little bit about AI. I said AI is going to be a reality. I said, but there's really going to be three things that I think are going to drive where we're headed, and that is relationships, collaboration, and effective communication. I think AI is going to be a part of all those. But let me tell you what they won't replace. And I'm sharing all that to share what you just said that really hit me. One of my favorite books that I read on leadership is by Wes Roberts, Leadership Secrets of Attila the Hun. And I love when Wes described how Attila would put the young Huns around a campfire, and then he would put the older Huns behind them, and they would begin telling stories of battles and victories and defeats and strategies and techniques so that the young Huns could hear their emotion. They could hear their tone, not what they read on an app, not what they read through Chat GPT, but they hear what Brad just said when he found his runway and the who factor. And then he plugged that in. And what did it do? It gave him tools to grow a career. And whoever's listening to this podcast, again, go back to what we're talking about, growing the future, competitive edge. Brad has shared some great stuff right here. I love the analogy of the three stool that
Yeah.
because that would be wobbly if it got out of balance.
Yes.
You can't have one without the other, or you're working too hard. It's
And how do I know, Aaron? That's always a good question for
yeah.
leaders is, well, how do I know if I'm out of balance? Or how do I know if I'm winning in my framework and in my playbook? Well, a lot of times we've got a feedback loop that is built into us with obviously your family, with spouse, with your friend circle, your employees, your coworkers. I mean, the thing that most leaders fall short on is they don't allow, back to this question of everywhere you go is a classroom, but also everywhere you go is an opportunity for you to get better because you're giving permission to people around you to help you
Mm,
understand
mm,
what it's like to be on the other side of you.
mm,
And this is where most leaders fall short. They don't do the hard work of, they'll say, I have an open door policy. And everybody says, yeah, but last time somebody went in there, it was ugly. And this is the power of, again, leaders who go to the next level of intentionality is you now start giving people permission, saying, hey, like, give me feedback, help me get better. I want to be better as a leader. I want to be better as a team member. And the other thing here is you we are all in charge of that. Do not wait on an organization to
yes.
set the tone
Yes.
of your level of
Mm,
intentionality.
mm,
Because most organizations will fall short because there's too much bureaucracy and there's too much, there's too many things that get in the way. So don't ever let the excuse be, well, I'm waiting on my principal or I'm waiting on my school district or I'm
mm,
waiting. Don't wait.
mm,
You set the
mm.
tone. You be the one that is the catalyst for that group of teachers that's now going to say, we're going to take it to another level.
I don't know about you, but I've always come to the conclusion that God doesn't have a problem hitting a moving target. So,
That's right.
to your point, don't wait, move, because you're going to learn one way or the other if you're willing to be open to that feedback, that loop. I love that loop. Um, that's good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Well, like I said, I knew this would go fast, and I knew that we'd cover some really good seeds. Um, I've got a lot. I wrote a whole page down of stuff. So I'm like, this is gold, gold. And I'll be sharing it, by the way, with others. Um, and I'll tell them who it was. I'll tell them where to come to find it because it's that good. Brad, but as we get ready to wrap up, every guest on the show gets a fun question.
I like it.
So you get a fun question. So I'm just curious, what is the best concert you've ever been to?
Best concert. Oh, well, I got one. It's U2 at Mile High Stadium in Denver, the old Mile High Stadium,
Really?
the original Mile High Stadium in Denver. Yeah.
How cool is that?
Back when U2 was doing their tour with the massive like claw. This was circa probably 2015 or 16, maybe somewhere in
Wow.
there. So yeah. And here's the thing, like I don't roll like this, but I had, because of some friends, I had access to the behind the scenes. I'll just say that.
Mhm.
So that added to the whole experience. And so me and some family and some friends got to stand at the front of house and experience the from the floor, from the
Mhm.
field level, watching one of the best bands ever
Yep.
create such an amazing experience with people singing along. And
Mhm.
I mean, it was yeah, it was next level. So that one stands out.
Well, let me tell you, I'm a fan, just so you know. I've regretted I had an opportunity. There's been two times I've kicked myself here we are talking about going and doing, and I'm telling you, there's twice now. But I get to tell this story because I didn't move. I had an opportunity to go hear Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers on the Pack Up the Plantation tour, and I missed it. And I had an opportunity to go see U2 Joshua Tree,
Oh,
and all I had to do was just detour, pull in, and I, I didn't do it. And but I'm still a fan. So
well, these are, you know how these things are. They're, whether it's you two, whether it's Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, whether it's your family going on a vacation, whether it's you like taking somebody to a sporting event, whether it's hey, the old days of FFA, by the way, I don't know if they still do this. When I grew up in Oklahoma, we would have the drive your tractor to work to school day
mm,
back at our high school. But those are all memory moments,
yes,
and what I would
yes.
call like they're mile markers on your journey. And
Mm.
don't be so driven by getting to the next thing that you miss the mile markers. Because mile markers, what they are is they're moments of memories in your life. And this is the power we have. And this is, maybe this is a good challenge, inspiration to lead people with. But we have the ability to create mile markers and moments for people. And that's part of our job as leaders and influencers and catalysts is be the mile marker creator for people in their journey. And many times it's just remembering a name. It's just sort of the next level of intentionality with that person. But we have the power to transform people because of that.
All right, Brad, brag on you here for a second. I've done about 90 of these episodes, and that right there is probably one of the best wrap ups we've ever had. That was good. Be a mile marker for
Yes.
somebody's journey, and
Yes.
to have those mile markers for your own journey. Um, Boy, I can relate. I was a diehard Bruce Springsteen. I'm diehard Jimmy Buffett. So I've got so many mile markers that I just, but because that's part of my brand. I like good live music, and so I was blessed to be able to do it. And you know, the folks that know my story know how and why I'm so grateful. Uh, Grateful to have met you. Grateful that you took the time to join us, and more importantly, grateful that together. Mike Rose said something one time when we were talking about the podcast, and Mike Rose said, he said, Aaron, you do realize what the term broadcast means. It's an agriculture term, it means to spread seeds.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought, how cool is this that we got this tool that we get to jump on and we get to share things that maybe somebody at the right time, at the right moment needed to hear.
Yes.
So I just want to say thanks, Brad, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for doing what you're doing and continuing to give people a platform and a place to learn. And again, as you said about me when we first met, I would say about you to honor you, like you had a posture of curiosity, like you were, now that was your people, like the Leader Fest
Sure,
gathering in Wichita
sure,
Falls. I mean, you know the folks in that room. These are
sure.
friends of yours. But you actually you were intentional about actually like connecting with me,
Mhm.
and I think that's also a thing just to honor you and encourage
Thanks.
this audience with is be the person that
Mm,
is willing to step across the bridge
mm,
of friendship
mm.
and of connection. And no, most people they just stop short, but you did that for me, and now look what's happening. We're helping
So,
people.
and I suspect we'll continue this dialogue.
That's right.
And again, um, folks, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for stopping by the Growing Our Future podcast. Again, if you want to know what the future is, grow it today. Look at all these incredible seeds of greatness that were shared today. I mean, Brad just really poured into us today. Check out his website, watch his podcasts. He's got some great stuff out there. And again, Brad, I'm a John Maxwell fan too. So I love the fact that these folks are my mentors and they don't even know it. So, but thank you for sharing some of your time with us. Ladies and gentlemen, until we meet again, go out and do something great for somebody. You're going to feel good about it. And who knows, you might just plant that tree under whose shade you may never sit.
Hmm.
So thanks so much for joining us.